I think a lot of my problems I blame on that accident to this day. I was born in Seoul, South Korea. The life I remember as a little kid, there's a lot of intense nostalgia. I remember things around food and delivery of black bean noodles to the house. I remember drawing a lot. I had an art teacher that came to the house, and we would just draw in oil pastels. I remember watching the Max Fleischer directed Superman cartoons. Sort of diving into these fantastical worlds was something I did at a very, very early age. I think probably my strongest memory, probably when I was like 4 or 5 years old, I remember hanging out with a lot of other 4-year-old kids wandering the streets of Seoul, and I must have crossed the street at a bad time, and this small truck came and hit me, and I went underneath the truck. I just remember kind of coming to in the hospital. My father was a doctor, so he was there. It was something that could have potentially ended in my life at a very young age that probably affected my parents more in terms of how they raised me and the things that they were concerned about as I continued to grow and evolve. So comics, trauma, art, that was the be-all, end-all of my childhood. My parents were very young when they fled North Korea. When the Korean War started in 1950, they grew up in a very destructive, uncertain, crazy time. Their dream was to come to a safer, better country and provide a better life for their kids. I wish they had told me all this when I was a kid, because I had no idea that was the plan. I just knew that they were just really aggressive in terms of how they wanted me to find true success. When we moved to Warren, Ohio, I didn't speak any English, but there was Superman. He also was an immigrant. He's the ultimate immigrant. He's the last immigrant from a dead planet. I think I instantly glommed onto that as something that brought me into American culture and provided sanctuary, I think, from probably everyday anxiety, everyday pressures that I felt as an immigrant kid that really didn't fit in, that desperately wanted to fit in. And so that led to a lot of weird, uncomfortable thoughts and things that I feel very sort of embarrassed about today. I felt ashamed to be Korean. So I understood this idea of putting on eyeglasses and being a different person, because I think that's what I was doing when I was going to school. I had my sort of American side, and then when I was home, I had my Korean side. In a Korean household, fear of failure is a big thing, right? That you won't get the good grades, you won't get into medical school, you won't be a success in life. And I think one of the reasons my parents wanted to move to America was for the proverbial American dream, and I think they really wanted me to follow my father's footsteps as a doctor because it represented security. I looked at medicine as sort of this very long escalator that you got on, and you rode it all the way to the top and you got off, and I just didn't want to get on that ride. I wanted to get a job. I wanted to work in comic books. And I had that dream ever since I was like 9 or 12 years old. And I remember after I graduated, having this conversation in our family room. I sort of laid this plan out to them where I would take a year off from applying to medical school. It got very heated, very emotional, and it ultimately resulted in me running out of the house. My father ran after me, and he just sort of calmed me down. I think they understood the level of commitment I had towards this dream. They were very tough on me. But at the same time, I'm thankful for that, because I don't think I'd be the person I am today without that push. And looking back on it, I was obsessed with this idea. I looked at everything I was doing as something that would help me to obtain this dream of being a comic book artist. In my head, I was thinking, if I'm going to do this, I have to prove to myself that I can. I've never drawn a comic book before. I got a small drafting table. I set it up literally next to my bed. Every day I would wake up, roll straight from bed into the chair. I would start drawing. I did that each and every day, to the point where my knuckles got really sore, and I pinched a nerve, and my dad got me a shoulder brace that kind of pulled my shoulders back. It was a brutal sort of physical transformation from being a civilian to someone that was drawing 8 to 10 hours, hunched over a drafting table each and every day. But I proved to myself that I could do it. And I think they saw really how much I wanted it and how much I was willing to work towards it. I definitely remember when I was fighting with my parents over what I was going to do with my life. Mentally in my head, I said, I will never ever put this kind of pressure on any of my kids. I don't even think I have mixed feelings about the way my parents raised me. Certainly I have perspective now, being almost 59, having 9 kids of my own. I understand where they came from, and I don't blame them for anything. I would hate for people to waste their time doing things that they felt others expected of them. There was great impact and power in recognizing your true self. And it's not something that I saw till much, much later. And I'm so thankful, I'm so thankful that my kids have a different life and that they don't have to necessarily have that division in how they perceive themselves. They can embrace who they truly are in all aspects of life, because that was not the experience I had as a kid.